It's 6:30 on a Friday evening. The fluorescent overhead lights in the office have switched to their dim, energy-saving mode, casting a sickly yellow glow over empty cubicles. Your eyes are bloodshot, burning from staring at a glowing spreadsheet for the last 9 hours. You are furiously typing, finalizing a third-quarter projection report that your regional director explicitly demanded before the weekend, a report you know deep down in your gut he won't even bother to open until Tuesday afternoon. The air conditioning has already shut off, leaving the air stale and suffocating. Down the silent hallway, you hear the sharp ding of the elevator chime. The heavy metal doors slide shut. That was Mark from logistics. Mark clocked out at exactly 5 o'clock. He didn't frantically check his emails in the lobby. He didn't pack his corporate laptop into his bag just in case of a weekend emergency. He just smiled, wished the night security guard a good evening, and walked out into the cool air. You sit there, massaging your temples, quietly judging him. You label him as lazy. You tell yourself he lacks ambition, that he's entirely stagnant, that he simply doesn't possess the predatory drive required to climb the corporate ladder. You wear your exhaustion like a badge of honor, convincing yourself that your late nights are the down payment for future wealth. But let me ask you a brutally uncomfortable question. Why does the guy you secretly despise for doing the bare minimum look a decade younger than you? Why does he have the physical bandwidth to play with his kids, hit the gym, and actually enjoy the money he earns, while you are chemically dependent on 4 shots of espresso just to survive the morning status meeting? The answer shatters the most destructive psychological trap ever engineered by modern society. We have been socially conditioned from childhood to believe that if you give 110% to your employer, the universe, or at least the human resources department, will inevitably reward you with financial freedom. You bought into the illusion that bleeding for a company you do not own is the honorable path to generational wealth. It is a brilliantly designed, invisible cage. They hand you a cheap acrylic plaque, a completely meaningless job title, and a lukewarm pizza party in the break room. In exchange, you hand over your youth, your mental clarity, your weekends, and your blood pressure. You are running furiously on a wheel explicitly designed to generate electricity to power someone else's mansion. Here is the cold, unforgiving reality of the corporate machine. Extreme competence is never rewarded with wealth. It is strictly punished with more work. The moment you prove to the system that you can carry a heavier burden without snapping, the system guarantees you will never be allowed to put it down. You aren't building a legacy. You are just optimizing your own exploitation. Let's look at the pathetic theater of productivity you participate in every single day. You take immense pride in being the dependable one. When a massive project goes sideways on a Thursday night, they call you. When a high-maintenance client panics on a Sunday morning, your phone is the one that rings. You absorb all the anxiety of the executives above you, completely blind to the fact that you are subsidizing a billion-dollar enterprise with your free, untracked labor. If you sit down and mathematically calculate the 15 extra hours you put in every week, uncompensated, unappreciated, and entirely expected, your actual hourly rate drops below the teenager flipping burgers down the street. But you ignore the brutal math. You ignore it because your ego has become hopelessly addicted to feeling essential. The bait in this specific maze isn't cheese anymore. It's a false sense of importance. You truly believe your relentless grinding loyalty is slowly building a bridge out of the middle class. But the architecture of corporate America was never built to let the hardest workers escape. It was meticulously engineered to keep them too exhausted, too stressed, and too dependent on the next paycheck to even look for the exit door. That lazy coworker you keep judging isn't failing at the game. He has quietly realized that the game itself is rigged against the players. He has cracked a behavioral code that your bosses desperately hope you never figure out. And once you see exactly what he is doing with all that preserved energy, you will realize that the greatest trick the modern employer ever pulled was convincing you that exhaustion equals importance. Rule 1. The curse of the competent. Let's talk about the exact moment the trap snaps shut on your ankle. It usually happens around your 3rd year at the company. You've been coming in early. You've been answering Slack messages at 11 p.m. on a Saturday. The machine notices this. It doesn't see a future leader. It sees a highly efficient, self-managing battery. So they call you into a glass-walled conference room. They smile, shake your hand, and hand you the ultimate bait, a promotion. You are now a senior coordinator or a director of some vaguely defined department. You get a new email signature and a microscopic 5% bump in your salary. What they don't explicitly tell you is the real cost of that title. That 5% raise doesn't even cover the true rate of inflation. But the workload? That just doubled. The anxiety tripled. The expectation that you will now sacrifice your evenings and your mental sanity is baked into the contract. You didn't get promoted. You just got bought at a steep discount. This is how the corporate maze neutralizes its most capable inmates. The system manufactures these hollow titles specifically to hijack your ego. They know human beings have a desperate biological need for status. When you are starving for validation, a plastic plaque with your name on it feels like a feast. A corporate title is nothing more than a psychological anesthetic, carefully administered by human resources to numb the pain of your stolen youth. You wear that badge like a crown, completely oblivious to the fact that it is a collar. Monday morning rolls around, and the reality sets in. You spend your days putting out fires you didn't start and sitting in strategy meetings that accomplish absolutely nothing. By the time you clock out at 7 p.m., your cognitive bandwidth is completely drained, and that is exactly the point. Rule 2. Ego-driven exploitation. The true objective of the corporate grind isn't just to extract your labor. It is to extract your capacity to dream, plan, and build outside of their walls. Have you ever wondered why you can't seem to start that side business? Why you buy online courses on investing, but never actually watch the modules? It isn't because you are lazy. It is because the corporate machine has systematically strip-mined your emotional vitality. Energy is a finite resource. You wake up every single day with a specific battery percentage of willpower. When you give 110% to a company that would replace you before your obituary was even published, you have zero juice left for yourself. You collapse on the couch and order $30 worth of takeout because boiling water feels like climbing a mountain. You mindlessly scroll through social media for hours because your brain is too exhausted to process your own reality. They don't need to physically lock you inside the building. They just need to make sure that when you finally leave, you are too depleted to dig an escape tunnel. They pay you just enough to keep you coming back and drain you just enough to ensure you never have the energy to leave. This is exactly where the lazy coworker outplays you. He understands his daily energy is his most valuable asset, and he refuses to donate it for free. He gives the company the exact minimum required to not get fired. Nothing less and absolutely nothing more. While you are burning the midnight oil, he is at home. His brain is fresh. He is reading financial statements and quietly building an empire in the dark, entirely funded by the steady paycheck he collects for doing the bare minimum. He looks at you and sees a tragic, overworked lab rat, proudly sprinting on a wheel that goes nowhere. But the tragedy isn't just psychological. The tragedy is deeply, irreversibly mathematical. Because when you actually sit down and run the numbers on your corporate ambition, the illusion shatters entirely. Let's do the brutal math that your corporate human resources department prays you never figure out. We need to calculate the actual opportunity cost of your vital energy. You are currently making, let's say, 400,000 pesos a year. On paper, that feels like a solid middle-class victory. Your contract explicitly states you are being compensated for a standard work week. But you and I both know you haven't worked a standard week since your orientation day. You arrive early to beat the brutal morning traffic. You eat a sad lunch out of a plastic container at your desk while answering emails at noon. You stay late to fix the errors made by the executive team. You spend your Sunday evenings mapping out the week's deliverables just to survive Monday. Conservatively, you are giving the machine 60 hours of your finite, unrecoverable life every single week. That is hundreds of unpaid hours a year just to maintain the illusion of being the perfect corporate soldier, the ultimate Godinez, proudly wearing your lanyard and carrying your Tupperware, pretending you are an indispensable part of the elite. Now let's apply the corporate bait, the annual performance review, and that holy grail you all worship, the end-of-year bonus. You bust your back, sacrifice your personal life, and achieve an exceeds expectations rating. Your reward? A marginal salary bump that doesn't even cover the true rate of inflation. After the government takes its aggressive cut, you are looking at pennies on the dollar. You just traded your prime biological existence for the equivalent of a weekend trip to a crowded resort. Rule 3. The deficit of unpaid devotion. Let that sink in. Your extra effort, your late nights, your stress-induced insomnia, it all yielded an hourly rate so low it is mathematically humiliating. And that is before we even factor in the shadow tax of your exhaustion. Because you are chronically drained, you outsource your survival. You pay for premium app deliveries because you are too tired to cook. You buy overpriced coffees every morning just to artificially stimulate your nervous system for the status meetings. You finance a premium car you can't really afford just to feel a fleeting sense of superiority while sitting in endless gridlock. The system doesn't just steal your time, it creates an artificial deficit of energy and then sells you overpriced conveniences to cope with that exact deficit. Corporate loyalty is nothing more than a voluntary tax paid by the deeply insecure. It is a psychological subsidy you provide to an entity that views you as a rapidly depreciating asset. You are subsidizing the regional director's luxury lifestyle with your missed family dinners. This is exactly why the coworker you secretly mock for doing the bare minimum is mathematically destroying you. He is operating on a completely different financial frequency. By strictly enforcing his boundaries and working exactly the hours he is paid for, he is systematically reclaiming his life. He isn't wasting that time. He is taking the energy the company tried to steal and redirecting it into compounding assets. He is using his fresh, untaxed cognitive bandwidth to research investments, acquire real estate, or build a silent digital business that the company has absolutely no claim over. He understands the golden rule of the modern economy. Your employer is just a client purchasing your baseline services. Treating them like a deity who dictates your self-worth is the fastest way to die broke. He is using the corporate structure as a highly predictable funding mechanism for his actual life. You, on the other hand, have made the corporate structure your entire life. When the economy inevitably contracts, and the board demands a sudden reduction in headcount. To protect their margins, they won't look at who stayed late on a Friday. They will look at a spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet, your inflated senior title makes you the most expensive liability on the floor. Rule 4. The inflation of false promotions. They will cut you loose without a second thought, offering a generic severance check and a cardboard box. The moment your badge stops working at the turnstile, your identity evaporates. You will be left standing in the parking lot, realizing you traded the best years of your cognitive performance for a company that erased your email account in 3 seconds. Meanwhile, the lazy coworker who avoided the fake promotions, refused the extra unpaid responsibilities, and quietly built his equity in the shadows won't even panic if he gets cut, because while you were building a fragile sandcastle in someone else's kingdom, he was buying the concrete for his own fortress. He has liquid cash. He has cash-flowing assets. He has the ultimate leverage, the ability to walk away without starving. The math is terrifyingly simple. If you keep trading your finite energy for the illusion of corporate prestige, the maze will slowly grind you into dust. The cheese is completely fake, but the trap is incredibly real. You are running out of time to change your strategy, because every single day you give them 110%, you are bankrupting your own future. The moment you realize the corporate ladder is just a treadmill with a better paint job, everything changes. You don't need to quit in a blaze of glory. Quitting dramatically, storming into the human resources office and tossing your badge on the desk is an emotional reaction. And emotions are incredibly expensive. What you need is a surgical withdrawal of your life force. You need to become a phantom in the machine. You have to completely dismantle the lie that your self-worth is tied to your quarterly performance review. The system is meticulously designed to make you feel guilty for resting, to make you feel like a traitor for putting your family before a client call. Guilt is just another tax levied on the middle class to ensure absolute compliance. It is time to stop paying it. Rule 5. The energy arbitrage strategy. The lazy coworker isn't actually lazy. He is a highly sophisticated master of energy arbitrage. He understands that the company is purchasing a legally defined output from him for exactly 40 hours a week. Every single ounce of intellectual horsepower he generates beyond that baseline is a voluntary donation to a billionaire's trust fund. He simply refuses to be a donor. True ambition is terrifyingly quiet. It doesn't crave a corner office, and it certainly doesn't beg for a round of applause in a Wednesday morning Zoom call. The desperate need to be recognized as a top performer is a psychological disease engineered entirely to keep you running at maximum capacity for minimum wage. The truly wealthy do not seek validation from middle management. They seek leverage. You need to weaponize mediocrity. Be perfectly, unremarkably adequate. Meet your deliverables exactly when they are due, never 2 days early. When you finish a task, you do not raise your hand and ask for more work. You sit in absolute silence and you redirect that massive surplus of cognitive bandwidth toward your own empire. You use their high-speed internet, their air conditioning, and the steady salary they deposit in your account to fund your personal escape plan. Think about the undeniable power of that transition. While your regional director is having a borderline panic attack over a 2% drop in quarterly engagement, you are sitting at your desk, calmly analyzing the cash flow of a real estate investment trust. You are building an invisible bridge out of their prison, using the exact tools they gave you to dig the tunnel. This is the core architecture of stealth wealth. It is the absolute rejection of the vanity tax. When you stop giving 110% to your employer, You suddenly have the biological battery power to give 100% to your own balance sheet. You stop buying the overpriced espresso just to artificially stimulate your nervous system for the morning commute. You stop financing the $60,000 luxury sedan just to prove to the guys in the parking lot that your fake title actually means something. You take all of that preserved capital and you aggressively deploy it into cash-flowing assets, index funds, digital real estate, silent partnerships, boring, unglamorous investments that compound in the dark, things that do not require you to wear a corporate lanyard or ask another adult for permission to go to the dentist. And here is where the psychological shift becomes permanent. Rule 6. Ghosting the corporate maze. The ultimate flex in the modern economy has absolutely nothing to do with what you drive, what designer logo is stitched onto your jacket, or what zip code you sleep in. The ultimate luxury is an empty calendar on a Tuesday morning. Picture the absolute peace of waking up at 7 a.m., seeing a frantic email from your boss with the word urgent in all caps, and feeling absolutely nothing. No spike in cortisol, no panic, just a cold, calculated indifference. Because you look at your investment portfolio and realize that if they fired you today, your lifestyle wouldn't change for the next 5 years. That is the true definition of FU money. It doesn't mean you are a billionaire living on a private island with a yacht. It simply means your passive income covers your baseline survival. The moment you cross that mathematical threshold, the invisible cage dissolves completely. Your manager's voice loses its authority. The supposed corporate emergencies become highly entertaining comedies instead of personal tragedies. You are no longer a frantic lab rat sprinting desperately for a crumb of approval. You are just a tourist in their maze, casually observing the trap while you hold the master key in your pocket. You stop fearing the inevitable layoffs because your primary revenue stream isn't tied to a corporate department's arbitrary mood swings. This is the exit. It is a lonely, quiet door that you walk through without telling a single soul. You let your co-workers keep fighting over the plastic trophies. You let them sacrifice their blood pressure for a salary bump that doesn't even beat inflation. You smile, you nod, you clock out exactly at 5 o'clock, and you fade entirely into the background. If you are ready to stop bleeding for a machine that doesn't even know your last name, then it is time to lower your output, hide your ambition, and start building in the dark. If you actually survived this entire reality check, drop a comment below saying Phantom Battery. The corporate loyalist will scroll right past it, completely confused. But we will know exactly who stopped running. My name is Daniel Rath, and I will see you outside the maze.